Welcome to Mimir, the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who want to launch and grow a successful business from day one. I'm your host, Maddie Kelly, and each week I sit down with founders who have been there, done that. We dive into the mindset, strategies, and practical tools you need to turn your vision into a reality. So let's get to work. Hey guys, welcome back to Mimir. Today we are talking about one of my all-time favorite things to talk about, which is fashion. But the fashion industry historically has faced challenges like overproduction, waste, and surface level sustainability that have thus far been somewhat impossible to fix, probably because these issues are baked into the system and new brands often unknowingly repeat the same harmful patterns. But with the emergence of AI and a founder who's creatively rethinking the entire model, it just now might be possible to solve these issues. So, in this episode, I'm sitting down with Sajna Massey, the founder of Couth, and her business is really interesting because instead of chasing trends or overstocking inventory, Couth puts design decisions in the hands of the community. So they only produce what people actually want, keeping waste low, quality high, and the process intentional from start to finish. So obviously I couldn't wait to chat with her because I think what she's building is just so freaking cool. So in our chat, I am picking her brain about what it really takes to build an innovative fashion brand as a first-time founder. I'm asking her all the burning questions that I know you guys have, including how she validated demand before producing a single garment, the lessons from navigating international manufacturing, what it's like to build a brand while working full-time, what's now core to her growth strategy, and how changing the way we make clothes might also change the way we consume them. This conversation is about fashion, yes, but it's also about thoughtful entrepreneurship, the power of community, and what's possible when you choose to build with intention. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Sajna to the podcast. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Why don't we just start with like a brief introduction into your history and what Couth is and what you're building?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Sajna. I am the founder of Couth. I've had a very varied career. I've worked in lots of different industries, construction, finance, retail tech, AI. I've always worked in kind of the like delivery and strategy and operations space. My background is in engineering, and then I also have an MBA, so like a nerd at heart, truly. And then about a year ago, I started ideating on something that I could build of my own. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Even my little sister, who's 8 years younger than me, has her own business.
Oh my God, I love that.
And so I was just like, it almost feels like entrepreneurship is in my blood in a sense. And so I started to think about, what am I passionate about and how do I combine that with my strengths? I have always had such a passion for fashion. I like grew up in, a very girly girl household. We went to the mall every single Saturday. That was our weekend outing. But as I've gotten older, I've become really, really conscious about how my shopping habits are, not helping the environment. And so I start to think about like what solutions could I ideate on where we can combat, overproduction, overconsumption, but I can also leverage my skills. So I started playing around with like different AI models, and I kind of came up with the concept of Couth, which is that I use AI to scrape runway trends, and the AI comes out with really, really detailed reports of things that are trending, and it's quite granular. So as an example, 6% of outfits from Paris Fashion Week had cutouts or structured shoulder pads, or like it's quite specific. And then I put those insights into a design algorithm that generates clothes for us. So it creates 3 iterations of every design. And then we actually post those on our Instagram stories for people to vote on. And we only produce the highest voted design. So we're really trying to validate demand before we bring something to market. Because the reality is there's so many brands out there that brand themselves as sustainable, but they're still overproducing. So it's amazing that you're using recycled fabrics. It's amazing that you're using natural fibers. But if you're still making twice as much inventory as you need, you aren't helping the situation as much as you think you are.
100%. I'm so excited about what you're doing because from like a purely nerd perspective, I think this is so freaking cool. Like Well, it's just really, really interesting. Like every industry is booming with AI right now, which is amazing. Like we're in a very cool time to be alive. But I think towards the beginning of this like AI boom, I would say everyone was just sort of like slapping AI where they could on their businesses to like try to hit the trends. And it's still happening. Yes. But I think you're actually, especially in an industry like fashion, where it's not necessarily, there's no like tech edge, even if behind the scenes at every company, everything is data driven. But to use AI to actually solve a major issue like overproduction and like actually getting to the heart of the sustainability issue, I think is something that you don't really see in that space. Like everyone tries to solve a piece of the puzzle, like you said, through sustainable fabrics or better manufacturing practices, and all those things are great. But I think now uniquely, like with AI, we're in a really cool time where the technology is actually able to help us do something real. So I also like, I'm in it right now. You know, I am trying to build and I'm working full time. And you did that while working at Lululemon, which is so cool. Like, I also simultaneously have 1,000,005 questions about your experience at Lululemon, but we could talk about that later. But I'm so curious, what did those early days look like when you were sort of splitting time between Couth and Lululemon? Like, what were you spending the most time on, I think?
It was interesting because in the early days, I was so excited. I had so much motivation. You know, like that when you have this like huge idea in your brain and you like need to get it out on paper, screen, whatever you want to call it. So in the beginning days, it was so easy.
Yes.
Like I would work my 9 to 5 and I felt like I had boundless energy after 5 p.m. to work on Couth. I would say that lasted for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And then I started, you know, it is very taxing.
Yes.
And then some of those like fun, shiny, like creative activities are done. And then you have to get really into like the not so fun, like execution part, you know? And so that's kind of when I started to really like lean on a community of entrepreneurs around me. Like I started a little co-working group on Sundays for women that were working on their side hustle. We'd all meet at a cafe on the weekends. And it was just really motivating. Like it wasn't, you know, it was completely industry agnostic. Some people were, you know, freelance writers. There was a girl starting up like a finance academy for women, but just like having kind of that accountability and being surrounded by people who, you know, aren't spending their Sundays hungover. They're like spending it building something really exciting was really helpful. I mean, I think in general, because I was remote at Lululemon, like that work from home piece, you know, you're cutting down on commute time. In a city like Toronto, that's giving you like 2 hours a day. You know, you're not having to like transit between meetings and things like that. And so your day itself becomes really efficient. And then, you know, you end your job at 5 and at 5:01, I was working on Couth. So that was super helpful too. I can't imagine having to sit in the car for an hour after a full day of work and then going back and working on Couth. So I think those were helpful. But really, when I thought about what I needed to work on, like I was just like ruthlessly prioritizing what would really move the needle. Like for me, at the beginning, that was really around like customer validation and securing production partners, which is continues to be a bit of a thorn in my side. I would say that those would be that would be kind of my sentiment around doing both at the same time.
I definitely want to talk about the thorns in your side because I think that's a super important part of your journey. But I also want to call out some of the things that you mentioned because I think it was super important. And like number one for me is that the honeymoon phase is real. When you are like just having the idea and you're just starting to ideate and you're like making mood boards and you're like writing out what the mission statement is and the value props and like all the things. It's so exciting and it's so fun. And like I remember doing that with my podcast and like that was such a fun time to be alive. And then, you know, once it's starting to become like a reality, there's all this work that goes into it. And you're right, it's about like, I think for me it was probably like 6 months in that I was like, oh, okay. It's real. It's, you know, motivation is hard, but having the accountability thing is so genius. Like you know, Monday Girl is amazing because you can just reach out to other women and be like, I know you guys are working on some stuff. Like, let's meet up and have coffee. And like, this is something I talked to my boyfriend about because it's like, we both have side hustles and we both, you know, work full-time jobs. And on a Saturday morning, I'm like, damn, I just want to sleep in. But to have an accountability partner there to be like, no, let's go grab our stuff, go to a coffee shop and work, like makes such a huge difference.
Huge.
And like leaning on, I think, other people who are in the same place, like it would be different, I think, if it was just any of my other girlfriends who didn't necessarily have a side hustle, but like they're like, oh yeah, like I'll go ahead and hang out with you, or like I'll read my book or something. Like, no, I think to have somebody who's in that stage with you of building something, no matter what that is so helpful because you can bounce ideas off of each other, and just like that energy, I think, makes a huge difference.
And I think the more like entrepreneurs I connect myself with and meet with, you notice, you see ways that you can kind of lift each other up. Like as an example, one of the girls that was part of that accountability group was a writer for a magazine. And she was like, oh my gosh, let me look at your press release. Let me see how I can edit it to make it, you know, really catch the eye of a journalist. Or one girl is a jewelry brand, and she was like, oh, we need clothes to style for our branding photo shoot. Would you want to give us like a shirt that will just, you know, the sleeves will be in the photos, like things like that, where like the more people you meet, like everyone just wants to lift each other up. And so of course I gave her a couple pieces for her photo shoot. And, you know, I think that's something that's like really cool about it. That's maybe a bit unexpected, but super, super special.
That's something I've really appreciated about the entrepreneurial community, is that I find everybody in it to be so kind and so helpful. Like, I think we all know what it feels like, and it's sometimes a very lonely journey. And so to have somebody like behind you and next to you being like, what can I do to help? You know, it really is something that can turn the experience from something that feels arduous to something that is uplifting and exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I feel so grateful, even with my friends, just to like have that community of people that are so willing to jump in and help. I can't imagine like building this without all the amazing people in my life. Like even just this weekend, literally 5 days ago, I wanted to do a branding shoot. We're a startup. We don't have thousands of dollars to hire a fancy photographer. Literally, we rented a studio for an hour. One of my friends who did some modeling, she donated her time. And then one of my friends who has a fancy camera and has done a bit of photography came, and we did the branding photo shoot for, you know, basically free 99. And yeah, like I'm so grateful that like people really, you know, believe in the vision and want to donate their time. It's amazing. I hope one day I can give them free clothes for life or something.
I'm sure. I mean, it's those things like you remember, and you'll be like, because you're an OG, like you know, you'll find ways, I think, to pay that forward in some other way. Maybe that's like helping other early stage entrepreneurs when you've like, you know, made it to some wonderful milestone and you're like now in the position to be able to pay that forward.
Yeah, 100%.
So I also want to talk about the thorns in your side. Like, what has that experience been like for you? Please educate me also, because I think like you're going about this a very untraditional route, which I think is super cool. Like, you know, typically most people, they have an idea for a design and then they, you know, make a connection with the manufacturer. They produce X amount of quantity that you have to prepay for, which is a ton of risk and terrifying. So I don't know, like, has your design process, production process, how does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, we have hit lots of different challenges. I think the biggest challenge is, I mean, yes, I worked in the retail industry, but I worked on like the tech stack. So I had nothing to do with the clothes when I was at Lulu. And so the fashion industry from like a product perspective is all new to me. You know, I know what looks good. I mean, I'm a girl who likes clothes. Fine. The algorithm spits something out and I'm like, this is cool. But that's where my expertise is. I don't have the know-how to look at a photo and think, okay, this is viable from a manufacturing perspective. This garment can actually be made. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the things that the algorithm spits out are just like beautiful, but crazy, like kind of impossible to actually create. And then the difficulty with the factories is because, you know, you are their client, they want to make you happy. And so every time I show them anything, they're like, yeah, of course we can make that. Of course we can. And then it comes back in, a month or two. And I'm like, hey, if you couldn't do it, you could just say you couldn't do it. Like, it doesn't look anything like what I expected. So I think that's been really tricky. It's just, I'm really relying on the factories to, produce great products for us. We've been through a couple rounds of factories. Like, I actually initially, when the brand came out, I really, really wanted to manufacture everything in Canada. I tested some Canadian manufacturers out. I just, unfortunately, the skill set is not in Canada for clothing manufacturing anymore. So we did a bit of manufacturing in India, but now all our clothes are made in Colombia. And it's, such the quality is incomparable to what I was getting at home. It's such good quality. And yeah, so the manufacturing has definitely been a bit of an uphill struggle. But I have now onboarded like a fashion consultant that's helping us validate our designs and do some amazing with the factory, because I just got to a point where I realized that I needed that expertise on the team, and I didn't have it.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. This is such an important personality. I don't know if it's a personality trait or like habit to have as an entrepreneur, is to recognize where you have gaps in your skill set and then just to like be okay with filling that in. But I'm also curious, if let's say I came to you today and I was like, hey, I really want to start my own brand and I want to start producing garments. What are some of your biggest learning lessons within that you were like, this like an aha moment, or where something clicked, where you're like, ooh, okay, that's how this works, and it's super important to remember?
That's a really great question. I would say just really, really interviewing and asking the right questions to the factory before you commit to them. I think when I started, I was really focused on pricing, of course, as a new company. But then you want to start thinking about like lead times, because some factories can produce things twice as quickly as other ones. You want to think about where you're producing and how much that would cost to ship to Canada, because different companies have different duties, which could double the price of your clothing. I would say asking them for samples of their work and what types of materials they work with, because, as an example, to make a pair of jeans and to make a leather jacket, you're probably going to two separate factories. They most likely aren't working with every type of textile. I at this point have a list of 30 questions that I ask factories now. Like, it's like a full on interview. Because in the beginning I didn't know any better, and I was like, here's money,
of course,
bring me my clothes once they're done. Like, I had one of my very early factories returned garments to us, sent us garments that were sewed inside out. So like the inside part of the fabric was the outside part of the garment. I was like, this is the worst.
Oh,
Yeah, it was really bad. And then, of course, because we work on a pre-ordered system, people were waiting for those clothes. And then I had to send them back and get them redone. And yeah, it was not awesome. So validating your factory is number one for sure.
Yeah, I think this is such an amazing thing that we're talking about this, because I'm sure a lot of other people in the position that you were in a while back are like, you don't know what you don't know. And when it comes to the level of risk that you're taking, when it comes to a clothing brand, like there's so much that goes into it. And it's so much better to be over prepared than underprepared. And also, because you're working with so many international manufacturers, do you ever run into language barrier issues?
That's actually that's a great question. That's part of the reason that I picked Colombia, because I can get by in terms of Spanish. And then the other piece is it's so accessible from Toronto. There's a direct flight to Colombia like 3 times a day. So if I want to come, I'm actually in Colombia right now. If I want to come down and visit the factory, I can really easily. It's the same time zone as Toronto, so just logistically, it's a lot easier than working with manufacturers in Asia as well.
That's so fascinating. Are you there to check out the factory and like talk to them about updates and stuff?
I actually, for the past 3 years, because I've been working remotely, I've been traveling for the winter. So I've been here for almost 3 months now. Yeah. But I've been doing like tons of product development, factory research, and textile research here as well. They have a huge industry focused around recycled textiles in Colombia. It's actually kind of known as like the
Wow.
textile hub of Latam. So yeah, I got to attend like the largest textile conference in Latam a couple months ago. So yeah, it's been a really good couple of months down here, just really like hammering down that garment production piece.
When you ideate with your manufacturers, what does that look like?
So I usually what I do is I take the photos to them that come out of
Mm.
the program. And then we go to a textile shop to look at different fabrics and think about what works. At Couth, we're really focused on trying to use recycled materials. So then we look at like the viability of some of the garments. Like as an example, I don't want to have something that's like 100% new polyester. Like if it has to be polyester, I want it to
Mm.
be recycled. So we do a lot of um, kind of looking at the textiles and things like that. And then before we actually make a version with the fabrics, we do what we call it's called a toile. I think it's a French word, but it's essentially making a canvas version of the garment, like just using super cheap material to make sure that it
Oh, cool.
works out and it fits properly and the stitching makes sense and the pattern makes sense, and then from there we make the final sample in the chosen fabric. And yeah, that's kind of how it goes.
So, your community is also something that is so important. And I have like a couple questions about the community aspect of
Mhm.
that. Like, firstly, just like a quick question. What level of detail do you go into with the community? Is it like these are your options for pieces that we're going to be making? Which one do you like? Or is it even down to the level of like, we want to make this, but what kind of fabric do we want? What's the layering, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what level of detail?
So right now it's we put out 3 designs and people vote on the designs. That's kind of A
Mm-hmm.
of our system. What we hope to do long term is actually be able to intake comments and then put those comments into the model and then actually have the model spit out a new design based off of, okay, 30 out of the 100 people asked for short sleeves, but the other 70 asked for long sleeves. So now the dress has long sleeves,
Yeah.
things like that. So we hope over
Okay.
time to actually be able to iterate the garment based off of specific feedback rather than just voting. Yeah.
Cool. And what did that voting and feedback loop look like in like especially the early days? Like how did you get people to engage
Yeah.
before you had a following?
Yeah. So in the early days, I actually had a Google form that I was just like sending to everybody, everyone I knew. Like I posted on my LinkedIn, I posted in the Monday Girl Slack, I posted it on every community I could possibly find, and people filled in the
Yeah.
Google form, and that's how I started off when I had no Instagram followers. But now we do everything on Instagram. So we post the votes on our the polls on our Instagram story, and then people vote that way.
Were you driving people towards following the Instagram as well, like in the Google
Yeah,
Forms?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
organic
cool.
follower growth these days is so difficult, but that is our goal right now, is really to grow enough of a community that I feel that the voting is statistically significant. Because right now, I mean, our
Mm.
community is small, but I would love to get to a point where we're getting 10,000, 20,000 votes on every garment.
What are some of the strategies that you're taking towards that growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say the one thing that I'm really focused on this year is actually doing a few in-person pop-ups, because I think because we
Mm.
are such a new brand, like a sentiment that I heard a lot during my customer research was, well, a lot of people aren't willing to take a chance on a new brand online that they haven't heard before that's at a medium price point. And
Yeah.
so yeah, we really want to interact with people in real life, have them come out and touch and feel and try on the clothes, because I think that's where you see, the difference of quality. And being able to tell people our brand story in real life. I think it's so easy to tell it on social media, but then at the same time, we're just like inundated with storytelling these days. So to really catch someone in real
Yeah.
life is important. So yeah, we're going to be collaborating with a few boutiques in Toronto this summer to hopefully meet some people in person and yeah, I think that's a really big part of our growth strategy. I mean, of course, we're
Yeah.
using, the typical stuff, organic social media, paid ads, email marketing. But I think for me, something that I really want to prioritize this year is that in-person interaction.
100%. I mean, I think, paid search, paid ads, like work to some degree if you can make sure that you get their keywords right, like that'll always at least drive some steady
Mhm.
traffic, which feels good. But I don't know if you know her, Michelle Choi. She's
Mhm.
also from Canada.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, I love her. She was on the podcast and
Oh,
we talked a lot about in-person events and how, like, for her, that made such a huge difference in really connecting with folks, and then also like understanding where those folks hang out and like where
totally.
she needs to be following them along the way, and also like being able, I think, to, like she said, talk about the brand vision helped to evolve the company in a much faster route than like any of the other traditional means. So it's so interesting to me. Like, it's it's one of those things where, like, from a founder perspective, having a physical product scares the living
Fair.
bejesus out of me. It's so hard. Like, I'm always like, software and tech makes me less
I
nervous.
agree.
But at the same time, like, you guys have the benefit, I think, of in-person interaction, which can like shoot
Mhm.
growth way faster. Whereas like we are always chasing people online, which honestly, from my perspective, is like way harder.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think, like, I mean, from a, working capital perspective, yes, a product-based business, physical product-based business is terrifying because you have to invest in
Yeah.
stock. Thankfully, our business model is not stock heavy. But yeah, I mean, with
Mm,
software, how many SaaS companies are out there with really similar messaging? It's hard to differentiate yourself. I totally agree.
yeah. So if you're lower stock based, meaning that like you essentially only produce what, like, the amount of demand that you're going to have based off of votes, and do you do
Yeah,
pre-sale?
so we do pre-order. So we don't. So once the vote occurs, then we start moving into production, and we have like a minimum order that we reach, and then we place our first order, and then we just order in
Hmm.
batches. So it's like very very small quantities of production. We keep like a very small amount of stock on hand for things like pop-ups and giveaways or like influencer gifting. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really small amount. Like by no means are we going out and making 10,000 units of the same garment, like a Shein.
This is so cool because, like, I just love the way that you're thinking about this. This is what gets me excited, because you are really rethinking about how we consume fashion, like from start to finish. It's not just the consuming aspect, but it's also like the build process,
Mhm.
and then also addressing like the inventory issue. I think a lot of new brands that I've been talking to lately have been taking this approach where it's like it's absolutely asinine to invest in like what I think traditionally has been the minimum order quantities, just because like it doesn't make sense for a new
Yeah.
brand. But from like a consumer adoption perspective, do you think that when you do have people who are like engaging with the product, are they excited about it? Is this something that they're like, why isn't everyone doing? Or do you think there's been like some level of difficulty for adoption because you're doing something so new?
I definitely think it's a huge shift to the way that we consume today. I mean, we are built on this culture of instant gratification, right? If I could order
Hmm.
something right now and it could be at my door in an hour, right? Like that is
I was on Target earlier today and they literally said they could deliver to me in like 2 hours.
yeah.
I was like, wait, that's insane.
Like a couple months ago, I had to go to a wedding and I was getting ready for the wedding and I burned my dress when I was ironing it. And I was, I know, don't get me
Oh, shit.
so, so I was like absolutely panicked. I was like, I have nothing to wear this wedding. And it's like a huge iron mark on the front of the dress.
Oh,
So I literally went on Revolve, ordered a dress. It was at my hotel in 4 hours. Like that,
no
yeah, that's
way.
the culture that we are used to now. And it's honestly, it's not healthy. Like the amount of personalized logistics that go into these kinds of things. Like what used to happen before
Yeah.
is like, whatever, the processing time is 10 days. They collect all these orders, ship them, and then distribute them from there. But now they're sending, one small package, how many hundreds of kilometers away? And it's horrible for the environment, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um, but sorry, back to my original point. It takes rewiring to think to yourself, okay, if I buy this shirt, pair of pants today, it's going to come in 60 days. And I think it makes people like think again, like, well, am I going to want this in 60 days? And for us,
Yeah.
we never want someone to buy anything unless you know you're going to want it like in 60 days, right? The average garment.
Yes, because that's the root of the issue.
Like the average garment is only worn 7 times before it gets whatever, discarded or donated. We want people to be wearing these garments for, much, much longer. So I think that has been definitely like a bit of a, learning curve for our audience, and that, yeah, like this garment isn't coming tomorrow. It might take like a month or two to get to you. But I feel that the voting piece creates like almost a deeper connection between the consumer and the garment, like they feel like they are involved in the creation of the garment. And so oftentimes like the early feedback that we've had is like, it kind of feels like, oh, like I designed this, like it's kind of my right, and that's what we're trying to foster, so that, if you feel like you've had a hand in creating something, you're more likely to wear it more than, the average of 7 times.
100%. It's not just you participated in a pre-order process and then you forget about it like 2 months later. It's much more like you have an emotional attachment to this piece because you've seen it like grow from the beginning into what it is. And so I think this is the other really interesting aspect of what you're building is it's like you want to address the overconsumption issue. So it's not that you're just producing less, but you're also like simultaneously retraining people and how they think about clothes. So it becomes like this whole closed loop where anytime they go out and buy something again, they're going to be thinking about that. Like to participate in this once and even to have this conversation. So anybody listening to this, it's like you will think about this every time now that you buy something where you're like, oh, is this something that I really truly need? Or should I wait and like just be like, that looks nice now? Like I am a big fan of adding things to cart for the instant gratification and then like closing the tab.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have like my new rule. So I actually ironically like I enjoy shopping in person. And so usually like I'll go to the mall, look around, but I'll never buy anything on the first round. My strategy now is to go home, and like if that piece is worth you driving back to the mall, you get to go get it. Because oftentimes for me, like you get caught up in the rush of the mall. You go into the store, you're like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
I want it, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna go home. It's gonna sit in my closet with the tags on for 2 months. But I find like honestly, it has probably cut my purchasing down by, I mean, I'm not keeping tabs, but I want to say it's over 50%, maybe 70%. Like I am buying way less now because I get home and I'm like, yeah, I didn't really need that shirt anyways. It's that retraining that's really important.
My mom always said that the best that clothes will ever look is in the store.
Yeah,
so you kind of have to like take the sheen out of it because it's true. And I'm also like so curious because you know so much about this industry. Like, what are other brands that you're looking at that are saying like that they're doing something really interesting and that you would feel good about buying from them?
That's a really good question. I mean, I would definitely give a shout out to another Toronto brand, Cotton. They, use a lot of natural fibers. They support. They do a lot of like donating back to local communities in Egypt, where a lot of their cotton farms are. I think there's a lot of really interesting innovation, specifically in the textile space. Not necessarily like a D2C brand, but there's another brand based in Toronto called Myco. Myco Works, I believe, and they are working on a mushroom leather. So it's like a vegan leather made out of mushrooms. And yeah, that's really, really amazing because we also, another part of this process is like we need more innovation when it comes to textiles. Like, unfortunately, the reason we are still using so much polyester is because polyester, it unfortunately, it has a lot of good qualities. It washes really well, it wears really well, it holds color really well, it's really durable. But we need a replacement. Like we need to over time, like phase out polyester. Like at Couth, I mean, we use a lot of recycled polyester. Would I over time like love to move to a different option? Yes. But unfortunately, there hasn't been a ton of textile innovation when you're looking at like really, like structured garments. So yeah, that's
What's the problem?
oh sorry.
What's the real issue with polyester?
I mean, polyester essentially it's plastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's the production of it is really horrible for the environment. When you wash it, it releases like microplastics into the water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are studies that have come out that it can increase issues around like what's it called, like skin dermatitis and things like that. It's just not a great textile. And
Yeah.
then the other thing is we have a means of recycling it, but it can only be recycled once. So once you have used recycled polyester, that recycled polyester is then not recyclable.
Interesting. Why?
Gosh, that I don't know. I just know that is the case. Yeah.
That's so fascinating. I mean, I figured that the issue with it was like at the root because it's plastic and like anything that's sitting on your skin is then being absorbed into your body. And I imagine that for the people who are actually producing this, it's probably like not a healthy experience either.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's like a heating process and a cooling process, which like is they're breathing that in. So I can imagine that it's not like ideal in terms of manufacture and then for wear. So I'll be intrigued to see what other level of innovation comes out soon because the mushroom leather is really interesting. Like I've even felt a mushroom, and you're like, oh, it's like springy and like kind of has a similar texture.
Yeah, it's a super interesting project. Like here in Colombia, I found textiles that are made out of like recycled banana peels and recycled coconut, and like some really cool innovation is kind of at the precipice, I think, of the industry. But yeah, I mean, the other tough thing with recycling is there's not a lot of technology to recycle blended fabrics. So as an example, like most of what we wear is a blend, like poly wool, poly cotton, whatever it is. Those fabrics are not recyclable because the fibers are literally like, fused together in a sense. And then they can't be recycled into anything. So yeah, like recycling, I think has such a long way to come. But for me, I'm more excited about some of the like textile innovation over some of the recycling innovation because I think that's a really, really interesting space right now.
Well, it's awesome because you're also sort of leading the charge in innovation, but just in a different way. So it's really awesome.
Like for us,
I'm so excited about what you're building.
We're really, really focused on like cutting down on overproduction. Because like I said at the beginning, there's so many brands that yes, you're using more sustainable fabrics, but if you're making 10,000 too many pieces, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much, Sajna. This has been amazing and such a fun conversation. I really appreciate your time and expertise.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been such a fun conversation. I could talk about this forever.
No. I love this. Like I could sit here and talk about this for another 4 hours also, but we have lives.
Amazing.
Another episode, perhaps.
Part 2 coming soon.
Yeah. Yes. I'm so down. Thank you guys so much for listening. All the links to connect with Sajna are in the show notes. Please check out Couth. I think it's so cool, and I know I'm going to be a part of the design processes from now on. And if you guys are enjoying the podcast, hit that 5-star rating, or if you're feeling up to it, leave a kind review. If you have questions you want answered, comment them in the reviews, and I would be more than happy to answer them at the end of the episodes. I swear this is going to work one day, and somebody's going to ask a question. It's going to literally change my life, and I'm going to be so pumped about it, so please be the first one to do so. If you want more from me and Mimir, check out my website, mimir.ink, for contact info, partnership opportunities, and key takeaways on all the episodes. I will see you guys next week.